Off we go in week 4 of our Friday night drive, and the live stream is underway. The scores are rolling in, and we are feeling good, and we're also looking good today. Got our Friday night drive gear on. Soucie, how are you, pal? Everything good?
Not too bad. Ready to break down this week 4 here. Got a lot of interesting games. A lot of early games coming in tonight. Already got a lot of finals on the board, so it's been interesting so far, but there are some games that I've been monitoring here that look like they're coming down to the wire. So it should be fun here to break it down.
We got some good ones going right now. We've got Batavia and St. Charles North. Batavia extending it now to a 2-possession lead at home as they try and put it away. About 31-21 here as we're keeping an eye on that one. What jumps out at you in terms of what you've seen tonight? You were at a game tonight as well. I was at one. It didn't look like either one of our games that we were attending were close.
Well, I was pretty surprised because I had, I guess, decent expectations for that Kankakee Normal Community game that I attended for at least the first half tonight. But Kankakee just came out like a house on fire. I mean, they went up 26-0 in that game. I believe it's been whittled down to 26-13 right now. But at least while I was there, it was all Kankakee and then some, because a very impressive performance. Sophomore quarterback by the name of Philip Turner continues to impress me with whatever I see from him. He's a really capable kind of run pass threat and throws the ball really well on the run. So really impressive work from a sophomore. Yet another quarterback in Illinois right now that I think is worth keeping an eye on. So that was what I went out and saw, and didn't see didn't see the game I was expecting, but it was always nice to get out and see some.
We will go through our scores as they're starting to come in, but first let me start with some highlights as we show you what's happened around Illinois in high school football. Week 4 kicks us off. That was one heck of a throw by Ethan Plum to hang in the pocket with all that pressure and to get that. Right now, it doesn't look like it's enough as St. Charles North is trailing by 10. A couple of its static notes that have nothing to do with some of the things. Cary Groves Field looks fabulous, by the way. The Mo job was a little angled, so give it a big round of applause to the building and grounds crew at District 155. And I would make this a Sports Boosters challenge for Sports Boosters organizations at high schools across Illinois. We need smoke for every entrance. That Plano entrance of purple and white smoke, we got to have it. That's great. That's great theater. Everyone should get smoke. You want that smoke? You're going to get that smoke. And come on, let's make that happen.
Yeah, great stuff.
What jumped out when you were watching the highlights there?
Well, I mean, right there, I was just kind of trying to morph through what was going on some other screens too. So I didn't get a great look at some of those highlights right there. The one thing, we were talking about it just a little bit before we got on air, I was on upset alert a little bit there with the St. Ignatius Mount Carmel game. At one point, St. Ignatius led 24-23 early in the fourth quarter. or actually 24-21. Mount Carmel picked up a safety to close it to 24-23. Then they returned the kickoff to take a 31-24 lead. Then 3 minutes later, Jack Elliott burst off a 54-yard touchdown run, and now Mount Carmel has a two-touchdown lead with 8:34 to play. So off of the upset alert, I guess, there with Mount Carmel and St. Ignatius, the Caravan and reestablish control.
We've got the finals rolling and the scores rolling across your screen, and we will update those. If you have scores and you're watching us on the stream, go ahead and jump in the comments button. I see Levi's got a couple of scores. Good to know Seneca getting a win tonight down against St. Bede. Some scores that are crossing now, and I'll as you watch the games go down to the end here, down to the wire, I'll go through a couple of them. Antioch with a 41-6 win over Lakes. That's a big rivalry up there in the top edge of Lake County. Rolling Meadows, a 38-7 winner over Maine West. Our friends from Bensonville, the Fenton Bison, well, the undefeated season came to an end tonight. 49-6, Glenbard South beat them. But hey, our Bison, we're adopting them. Our Bison now, 3-1, still got some work to do. We think they're going to get it done. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Can they get the 5 wins? They're going to find a way to figure out 5 wins. Let's just call it right there. Going down the scores, continuing here. Mantine over Streeter, 42-8. Buffalo Grove with a shutout over Highland Park, 22-0. Wilmington, and a big one tonight with Peatone, but 49-13 says a lot more about how good Wilmington is. Not so much how maybe not necessarily a paper tiger situation for Peatone. Wilmington's just that good.
Yeah, they really are, and they're doing it so quickly too. I mean, I think they scored on their first offensive play from scrimmage, and it seemed like almost before I knew it, it was 28-0, 35-0. I mean, they're scoring so quickly, and a lot of these point totals that they're putting up are in the first half of these games. I mean, they are really putting together a dominating performance, hoping to defend their 2A title. If they end up getting bumped up to 3A, they look like they might be up for the challenge up there too. So Wilmington's off to a fantastic start.
You had conversations with the folks from Lockport who said, well, we don't know where we're going to be, but they needed that win tonight over Waubonsie Valley. They got it, 21-7.
Yeah, they're grinding it out. I mean, that's really what it's about. Apparently, they had a bunch of guys out tonight again with some injuries, so kind of a gritty effort for them. But that's kind of what Lockport does. They find a way, and they found a way here. So that's right now their schedule doesn't get any easier, but 3-1 at this point in time has to be considered a win based on what they were going to face.
What they've had to go through, yeah.
Yeah.
Marmion 3-1 now, 35-0 over De La Salle. Bartlett a win over Streamwood, 27-6. Addison Trail 28-21 over Hinsdale South. Cary Grove over Jacobs tonight, 35-14 result, and probably the win obviously expected. The result probably the same as well. Logan Abrams looked like he was doing what he needed to do to make sure they got a nice, comfortable win tonight for the Trojans.
Yeah, it definitely looked like early on I think Jacobs scored first in that game. But then after that, it was kind of business as usual for Cary Grove and just kind of reestablished what they do and eventually started to inch away and ended up with a comfortable victory. It's kind of the blueprint that they go by right now. Just one that I was watching kind of wind down to the end there. Lingaway West rallied and tried to get back into it, and almost recovered an onside kick, but ends up losing to Sandburg, who once again I'm going to apologize to. You guys are better than I thought. Sandburg with a 22 win over Lincoln Way West, knocking them from the ranks of the undefeated and getting themselves up to 3-1. So Sandburg, clearly a really good football team. So, I mean, they're really doing some nice work here. After that season opening loss to St. Rita, 3 in a row now for them, and it looks like they're a real player in that Southwest Valley race.
Switch back to the Fox Valley for a second. Dundee Crown was a team that I thought could go to 4-0 based on their schedule. They lose again tonight to McHenry, so they're 1-3. And the last 3 weeks have come down to literally the final possession of the game. And that's just how close things can be. Tough break for the Chargers. It's been tough sledding up in Carpentersville these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it seemed like there was some opportunity there. But
yeah,
you having those games, sometimes when you have those games that are coming down right down to the final possession, they don't go your way. It starts to snowball on you a little bit. And that's kind of what it looks like it's happened to them.
And they still have Cary Grove, Prairie Ridge, the whole gauntlet waiting for them on the other side of it. So we're going to keep continuing to look at the scores. Folks up in Marengo and Woodstock, I believe that game, 24-10 score. Marengo and the Indians with the lead on that one. We're going to check in with what's going on with Loyal in a second here after their win over Brother Rice. But first, Canelan and Ottawa as they dip back into the Interstate 8. Let's hear what Bill Fresco's had to say about what happened with the Knights and Pirates tonight.
All right, folks, we are final from Ottawa. All Canelan in this one. 49-20 is the final score. Knights junior Carter Grabowski stole the show in the first half. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 of them on the ground. One of them was a 90-yard kickoff return, which put him up 4 scores. I think it was a pretty big one in terms of momentum. He also had an interception. He's a running back and a DB. So all Canelan in this one. They're going to face Morris next week. So that'll be a big I-8 matchup. Ottawa will, have to bounce back next week. They're going to go at Sycamore. So 49-20, thanks.
Yeah, 49-20 to final. Thanks to Bill. Of course, Canelan, we've talked a lot about Sycamore. We've talked over Morris in that league. Rochelle has surprised us with that start, but Canelan continues to be strong and steady, and that matchup next week is going to be a dynamite one in the I-8.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a league that we're going to have to keep an eye on from a week-to-week basis, because we're going to have a lot of games that on paper look like they're going to be dogfights, and that's basically what it comes down to. So it'll be interesting to see how this league kind of shakes out. We talked about this a little bit last week. Wouldn't be surprising to see whoever comes out of this with a league championship have 1 divisional loss, maybe even 2. I mean, that's kind of what the depth is about here. I think you might see a team that you got picked in the middle of the pack topping off one of the, the major teams at the top, because that's just how deep this league is in talent. But the one final that I was kind of keeping an eye on in the I-8 tonight, Sycamore with a 25-19 win over Rochelle. So that was one that Sycamore kind of controlled it. It wasn't really as close as the score indicated. Rochelle scored late to kind of tighten it up a little bit. But Sycamore, once again, just, doing what they have to, putting up another W. And right now they're in the driver's seat right now, to be completely honest.
The wheels have fallen off for St. Charles North. They've allowed 21 straight points now. It's Batavia 38-21 as they're putting that thing away at Bulldog Stadium, and it looks like it's going to be setting up for Batavia Geneva here in 2 weeks to be an outstanding matchup and a lot of theater heading into that week. Also, one final thought, as you mentioned, Canelan, I thought of DeKalb because tonight they were playing Lincoln Way Central, and it's all Lincoln Way Central in that one. But you will appreciate this, sports writer, and, potentially myself as a staff member in some places. They had a touchdown to get to 39-0, and they missed the extra point to get it to 40. It's 39-6 right now in the fourth. The clock has not run. No running clock for you. Sorry, we're missing extra points. I didn't do it on purpose, I promise you that. All right, back to Wilmette. The night game up in Wilmette for game number 2. Well, it went a little bit better for the Loyola Ramblers because they had their quarterback back. Ryan Fitzgerald, after his win over Brother Rice and being back on the field.
I mean, what does it mean to be back out there? What was it like?
It's great to be back there. It was tough to see the team last week go out and not perform. And I just felt like as a leader and as a quarterback, not being on the field didn't help me with that. But I think Dom did a great job. And I think this week just being back out there and leading guys it's pretty nice. And obviously we found a way to win. Defense stepped up and offensive line stepped up pretty big today.
It didn't seem like you have, much hesitation at all going out there. Just how did you kind of feel, especially after, especially on that first drive?
Just confidence. Like a coach always says, just have blind confidence in yourself. No matter what, always feel prepared. It's just because we are prepared. All these guys, they spend endless hours on film, knowing what the defense is going to be in. And once you go out and you see it, it's just second nature. And you practice and you rep it so much. You go out, it's second hand, and you go and just get some results. You win. Go make a play. That's what our coaches tell us to do, and that's really it.
Yeah, and so for Ryan seems calm and composed, and all the usuals when it comes to a guy of his pedigree, and of course having his father who's been in the media spotlight. He's used to these conversations. That's something that I think you and I sometimes take for granted. when you have a 16, 17-year-old that can speak so well in terms of those situations about what he saw and what he's been able to do, and to make sure that he gives a ton of credit to his teammates, which he did there too.
Yeah, I was glad to see he was back because, I mean, I was getting conflicting reports all week about how long he might miss, and it was questionable, at least from what I had heard, if he would even play tonight. So I'm glad to see him back on the field. Obviously, he's a real talent that you want to be able to have out there as much as humanly possible. So it was nice to see him get back out on the field, get Loyola back into a situation where this is manageable. They're 2-2 now, so now they're in pretty good stead. And what I was talking about before about this game, between whoever came out of it was going to leave at 1-3 with a lot of work to do on the back half of that schedule. Yep. So, and that's where Brother Rice finds itself now. So, you're going to have to get some momentum going in a positive direction here, even though that might be tough to do sitting here at 1-3. So, definitely was a game that I was keeping an eye on for a lot of reasons tonight. It kind of played out the way that I expected it to, considering that Fitzgerald was back in the lineup.
Do you have Lincoln Way East 49-17? They're in about 3 minutes left in the fourth in that one at Naperville North.
I have a very rain-covered feed right now, But that was the last score that I saw.
Yeah, and it's gotten much worse for St. Charles North. It's 45-21 Batavia in the fourth. This thing is, which is too bad because you're going to see that score and go, whoa. That's not how this game went for about 2.5 quarters. This was a much better game than that. So what's happening to St. Charles North right now is exactly what happened to Wheaton North in the first half against St. Charles North last week. And so I think some folks in the Duquesne are going to have to realize that you're going to have to withstand some onslaughts. And we've seen two teams not be able to handle that just yet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. This is a team that obviously once it gets rolling, it's going to be very, very tough to stop them. And like you said, this game was a lot closer than this score is ultimately going to come down to. But it also does show the potential explosiveness of Batavia. If they get into a game where they've got to trade scores with someone, they clearly have the capability to do it.
Illini West over South Fulton, 44-20. We mentioned Antioch, but Martin Cullen, about 240 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns, 4 on the ground. That's pretty good. Those are pretty good numbers. That'll get his name in the paper. And Marengo running away and hiding from Woodstock. A little bit of a surprise because we thought Woodstock had a nice start to the season. Well, the reality sets in a little bit. But don't think that was supposed to happen against Marengo of all teams. I think that's a bit of a surprise, just in the margin of it for sure.
I just think that league is going to be like that.
I have no idea. Yep.
I think we're going to have a lot of games where we're going to think we got it figured out, and then the reality sets in and that we don't. Because, I mean, I was noticing we were talking a little bit about Woodstock North before too, and, I mean, all the points that they've scored, I saw that they were winning their game, but I think it was like 10-6, and it was like in the second half. So it's just, I feel like it's just going to be kind of all over the map in the Kishwaukee this year.
What's jumping out at you right now is I'm going to go through scores and just kind of scour the landscape to see what I have. I'm curious to see. I know Downers Grove North rolled up Proviso West. That's not much of a surprise, but I didn't get anything on St. Rita and St. Francis yet. That's something that I wanted to pay attention to see if we can get a final result of that one.
I just seeing St. Rita score a touchdown. I just looked over at the graphic that I have over here. They are now up 31-13 with 1:08 to play in that game.
That surprised you a little bit to do it on the road the way they have?
A little bit, yeah. And it took St. Francis a while to get on the board. I mean, I believe they were down 17-0 at half. And after doing what they did last week against Loyola's defense, I would have thought it would have been awfully difficult to shut that Wheaton St. Francis offensive attack out for a half. But that's what Rita did and set the foundation for this victory. So, like I said, just it looks like we're about wrapping up there. Rita just tacked on an insurance touchdown there. So, yeah, 31-13 with a little over a minute to play.
There's shaking hands in Naperville North. It is a final. Hard to read the screen, but I believe it's 49-17, the final. Lincoln Way East. Anyone wants to confirm that, we will appreciate that. Last check, Naperville Central, a 56-7 final over Stagg. We got Glenbard East, 65, Elmwood Park, 13. So you have the haves, and you have the really have-nots in the Upstate 8 in a conference that's just kind of all over the place as well this year. So curious to see if the two teams in South Elgin, Glenbard East, I should say three, Glenbard East, Glenbard South, and South Elgin, if those three kind of rise to the top in terms of the conference title races, so to speak, especially with the new breakup of how the conference goes this year. Let's check into Plainfield North. Rob was down there with a recap. Let's check in to see what he had to say.
At Plainfield North tonight, Plainfield North evened its record at 2-2, beating Joliet West 28-3 in a Southwest Prairie crossover matchup. Plainfield North quarterback Justice Bird threw for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns, also ran for a score. Teammate Malik Jassam ran for 81 yards on 18 carries and also scored a touchdown. Joliet West got an interception early from Scott Nowicki, and he returned it to the North 11. That led to an Adrian Ramirez field goal, and West led 3-0. Unfortunately, the North defense was stingy all night, and that was all they allowed. Both teams will enter conference play, North in the Southwest Prairie West, West in the Southwest Prairie East next week.
Aside from Oswego, who's now 4-0 after a win tonight against Joliet Central, who else in that league is a threat? Because it's hard to try and figure that out. Minooka put 70 on the board, so you get the count there. But of the Plainfields, I can't figure out which of the Plainfields come on top.
I think ultimately Plainfield North will probably be okay. Yeah. They're a pretty solid team defensively first, and Malik Jessam has evolved into being a pretty productive running back for them. So I think in the long run, I think Plainfield North will probably end up being pretty okay in that race. I do think Minooka is probably the only other team in that conference that can maybe spearhead a strong challenge at Oswego, and I'm not sure they even can. I'm really impressed with that Oswego team. Granted, tonight they were playing a team that was completely overmatched against them, but moving forward, I think Oswego's your clear favorite, and then I think all of those other teams are kind of going to get into a little bit of a scrum with one another to see who kind of emerges from that pack.
I think you circle week 8 in that league because Minooka goes to Oswego, and that you would imagine 2 7-0 teams could be sitting there waiting to go for a quite the tangle in the Southwest Prairie. And, that's kind of an old school little 7 matchup. When you have those two teams that could, if it's not Morris, it could be Minooka just as much the same.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. It's definitely one of those situations where I think that that's possible, but I also think that it's possible that we could have just a complete churn in that conference too. Once they get into divisional play, at least over the last couple of years, it seems like at least 1 or even 2 of the 3 games turns into complete chaos. Like it's low scoring when you thought it was going to be high scoring when you thought it was going to be low scoring, and maybe the underdog wins. It just seems like in that division, there's almost nothing that's guaranteed on a week-to-week basis.
Still looking around. Again, we're still getting scores that are just starting to come in, especially some of those finals from elsewhere. Just trying to see if we can knock out some top 25 scores. We know Libertyville was winning in a comfortable margin, 26-7 at one point over Lake Zurich. I don't know if we have a final on that one yet. Your Coal City Kohlers, 74-0 on Lyle. How does it get to 74 in that situation? And that has to all happen in the first half more than anything else, right?
It did, because I saw a video clip on it, because what we were talking about light and laser shows, apparently Coal City got a new toy in the offseason too. And they were displaying how they were utilizing their new toy tonight in a video clip. And at the end of the tweet, it said that celebration, that video celebration, happened 8 times in the first half. That explains how we got where we got. Yeah.
And that means if you do math, it's probably 56 on the board. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So we figured it out.
We got there. Yep.
Harpasani was at Providence tonight. He's got a short recap for us.
Harpasani out here at Providence Catholic. Final score is 14 Providence Catholic, nothing for Notre Dame. Defensive battle throughout. Touchdown for Providence right at the end of the first half on a 5-yard touchdown pass. big 97-yard touchdown run for Gavin Hagan in the fourth quarter makes the difference. It's 14-0 Providence Catholic. They're 2-2 heading into St. Francis next week.
14-0 Providence. What do you make of the Celtics right now at 2-2?
I talked about it before. This was, the game last week that they lost at the wire against Carmel was very costly to them in terms of their playoff hopes. I don't hesitate in saying it. This was a must-win tonight. They had to get back to the 500 mark. With what was left on their schedule, they could not afford to be 1-3 going into week 5. So gives them a little bit of breathing room, still not a ton. There's a lot coming up on their schedule. Obviously, that can be said by a lot of Catholic League teams, but the next 3 weeks for them is Wheaton St. Francis, Marist, and Loyola. Ooh. So that's what we're looking at for them in regards to their schedule. So 1-3 was not an option for them. They had to get to 2-2 to give themselves a shot here, and even still, they're going to have to get one of those 3 games to avoid being, in the situation. And by the way, they got that annoying team somewhat close to them later in their schedule too, in Joliet Catholic. So their schedule is an absolute beast. But any hopes they have of maybe being a 5-win team, if they can get on a little bit of a roll, or even if they have to get into that 4-win mix. If they're in that 4-win mix, they're going to have more playoff points than almost anybody. That's just the reality of the situation. So if they do end up finishing at 4-5, they'll probably still get in. But even that looks like it's going to be a challenge. But like I said, they had to have this one tonight.
The best part about when Barrington and Maine South play each other is that it's always fun, and it's this, back, forth. It's 35-28, about 8 minutes left in that one. Barrington with a 7-point lead. But again, what they're doing, it's on big plays here. Just another 50-yard bomb going the other way. Can Barrington break through? We talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, in just terms of trying to figure out whether or not they have enough offense to do some damage in November. It was nice to see them get to the semifinals last year. First time they've been there, I believe, since, if I had to think about, was it 98, the first time they've been to the semis? It might have been. Yeah. But, they got to the quarterfinals. They always get stuck in that quarterfinal level. They got through that. Can they get to normal, though?
It's always interesting with them. And I'm not going to say that they don't schedule well, because they do. They schedule well in the non-conference. But what I would love to see them do one time is kind of go outside of their kind of geographic region and maybe try to play someone from a little bit of a different style specter, if you would. Because it seems like even though they play good teams, they're all kind of like them in some way. So I don't know how much we're really gathering on whether or not they can compete with some of the teams that are like outside of their area, like the Lincoln Way Easts and the and the teams of that ilk. I'm using Lincoln Way East as an example. Obviously, they're an extreme example, but just maybe someone that's out of kind of that north suburbs region that plays a different brand of football, just to see kind of how they stack up, because I never really know until we end up getting into a quarterfinal or a semifinal game against one of those types of programs, because it's really the first time they've seen somebody like that all year. I don't know how to match up.
I think the problem for them is because the way the schedule is set up in that league, because they have week 2, they have crossovers east and west, and then they have the scheduling partnership with the Central Suburban League, and that's why you're seeing, the Glenbrook South and the Maine South, which is great. And you know what? It's the problem with Barrington is like, we'll do that, but we don't want to have to do that. You've got 11 other schools that need to fill those schedules, and also to do it in schedule-friendly ways, meaning first, and on your way down. That's why that week 3, week 4 arrangement has worked so well. So that leaves you week 1. And they had South Elgin this year, which is a wild card. And so maybe that's a 2-gamer, and so you the return game up in Barrington next year. And then, so I don't think we're going to see that change if they think about that for a while. And the problem that Joe Sanchez knows is that if I put somebody like Lincoln Way East in week 1, I have no idea what kind of team I have. I have no idea what team I'm facing. And so that's a lot of coaches kind of would like to figure out how to have the nice soft landing spot first before you get that week 2 challenge.
Yeah, and speaking of teams in that conference and how they are, Hersey with a 30-24 win over Glenbrook South tonight. So once again, we're seeing just kind of chaos in the middle there, because like we talked about, like what Hersey started with, and then last week beating Maine South, and then this week kind of eking out a win over Glenbrook South, which is a game on paper that I thought they wouldn't have as much trouble with. So yeah, it's just once again, it seems like we're kind of a little bit all over the map.
Fremd, a 28-20 winner over Deerfield. A little tight for the Fremd Vikings, but they go to 4-0 now. Palatine 27-3 over New Trier. I believe they're 3-1 and a 2-point conversion away from being 4-0. So that entire league is looking at 4-0 basically across the board. Hoffman won tonight, and they take out Vernon Hills in their final tune-up heading into mid-suburban play. We mentioned Canelan 49-20. We're still looking for scores that are coming in. So as they come in, please send us those scores. We'd love to have it. And we appreciate everybody watching us right now on the streams. As many of you guys are, in your car. Or, there are some. I heard this tonight. So I had an assistant coach tell me, I get done with the coaches, and we do, especially on the road. It's great because then I sit on the bus and I just listen on my phone while I'm sitting on the bus riding back from where I am. So shout out to all you players and coaches and moms and dads, probably not the person driving, but the person in the passenger seat handling it, that's got the stream on as we're watching, they're on their way home from a road trip. I think that should be our calling card, shouldn't it be? When it comes to this, I mean, you guys have been doing this stream for a couple of years. I'm a rookie at this. So you know what happens with rookies? They come in with all these big ideas, right? Yeah. So my idea is let's brand this out let's hear from the people that are on the bus on their way back from wherever they came.
Here's a final that I just came across. Wheaton Academy beat Hope Academy 42-14 tonight. Okay. Kind of the way that I expected that final to go. I mean, I expected Wheaton to win that game, but maybe not by that margin. And now Hope Academy's sitting there with a 1-3 record.
That's a problem.
A pretty good record, a pretty good resume. I mean, those losses are to Wilmington, Simeon, and now Wheaton Academy. So for a 1A program, that's about as rough as I would expect you to schedule. But still, 1-3. Now for them, the schedule does soften out quite a bit for them.
Yeah.
So I think they should be able to still get themselves into the playoffs, but a little surprised to see that gap there with Wheaton Academy winning that game by that margin.
1-3. Say they get the 5-4. Are they a Class 1A nightmare for somebody?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we're going to get this year. I think more so than anything, you're going to see teams seeded below 20 that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, how are they a 23 seed? How are they a 25 seed? Well, this is what happens when you go out there and challenge yourself at the level that Hope Academy did. That's going to be a situation that's probably how it's going to play out at this point. They get themselves in. They're probably going to be seated below 20.
I'm looking at you, Lena Winslow. That's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of a first-round matchup. It is a final, the Mustangs of St. Rita over St. Francis, 31-13. I need this opinion from you, Seuss. The blue field at St. Francis, yes or no?
I like it better at night.
Yeah, it does pop at night. I will tell you, the aesthetics of that looks pretty good. And, it's the two-tier blue, but it's, it's very Smurf turfy, if you're used to Boise State.
I saw it for the first time last year in a playoff game against Morgan Park, I didn't like it, but it was in the afternoon. But I like it a little bit better when I see it at night.
Here's a reason for it, a theory, because Boise State did the blue field, and the first reason they did is because the birds kept landing on it, and it was kind of disgusting. So if you put it blue, oh my goodness, they think it's water. Don't go on that thing. Yeah. St. Francis has always had flooding issues, swamp issues in that area. For years, they had to play over College DuPage or Wheaton College or something like that. And they have, when you look at the feed, next time you're watching a game, there's that swamp behind it, and it's kind of a little bit of a creek. And so there's a lot of wildlife back there that they can't really get rid of, so to speak. Yeah. So I don't know if the blue turf was an accident because they like the colors, and but it's also to help with that in a similar fashion from Boise State. So I would imagine if there's a St. Francis official that could clear it up, I would love to know the answer of that right now. What else is happening right now as we watch around the league, or watch around the state, I should say?
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of things have gone finals so far, so it's going to be kind of an early night for finals. So
yeah,
that's kind of interesting in a lot of respects. But so I mean, right now there's Byron with an easy win over North Boone. I saw a tweet earlier in the night, and I don't have any reason to believe that it wasn't true. Byron won the game 71-6, but I actually saw a tweet that said Byron had 51 points after the first quarter. I have not been able to verify that yet, but my goodness. I mean, that's crazy town. So
yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah, that's a lot. So that's a lot of points for one quarter. So yeah, definitely. But they're just rolling along as, I mean, kind of expected. That was that kind of situation with them. But yeah, so that was one of the early things that kind of shook out to me earlier tonight. But you know, as far as the other stuff goes, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. Mount Carmel ended up winning that game 45-24. At one point, they trailed 24-21, and in the span of about 5 minutes, they scored 3 touchdowns and put the hammer down. So
let's go back to Byron for a second, because yes, they are an absolute wagon in the first quarter. 51-6 was the score with 1:33 to go in the opening quarter, which means North Boone got on the board too. So in that first quarter, I would imagine a kick return was immediately the follow-up touchdown in order to get, you know, some points back on the board. But yeah, that's a thing that happened out there. I'm finding the score log. Someone was so nice to put this up. It was 8-0, 48 seconds into the game, and then it was 22-0, 4.5 minutes into the game, and it got worse. And it's 37. There's 37-6 with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. So they put 2 more on after that. And it was 58-6, 2 minutes into the second quarter. So they got to the half at 65-6. And so the final was 71-6. Thanks to social media there.
Interesting final that I just came across. Nazareth beats IC Catholic tonight 33-0. So that was obviously a little bit more of a runaway than I fully expected. I thought IC Catholic would give them a bit better run there. So, and it looks like, just from what I'm picking up here, the Joliet Catholic Marist game is heading into overtime. So that one changed up quickly. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but that I believe the last time I saw it, I thought I saw Marist was up 24-7. So apparently Joliet Catholic mounted a serious rally there.
Going to be digging around to see if we can get that one here, so bear with us as we try and keep an eye on that one here. And I got some scores from Central Illinois too, so I was able to get some stuff from downstate. Want to kind of go through that when I can here.
Let me stop you there for a second. It's actually over. Final in 2 overtimes. Joliet Catholic 31, Marist 30.
31-30. All right, we find out that went final. Okay, let's take a commercial break and get ourselves reset here. When we come back, we're going to check in with what's going on at Oswego East. I've got Central Illinois scores. We're whipping around and finding some good ones for you here on week 4 of Friday Night Drive.
Hey, football fans, listen up. I'm Tom Thayer, and I drive a Hawk. I got it from my friends at Hawk Volkswagen. So drive what I drive. Drive a Hawk. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet or online at hawkvw.com.
Do you ever wonder where the profits go when you shop at a big box store? Hi, this is Patty from Oliver's Corner Market. When you shop at Oliver's, you can rest assured that the profits stay local, supporting other local businesses and charities. Find us at the corner of Britton and Bradshaw in Dixon.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interest. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
are back. We're in our second half hour. Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie, and a host of reporters from our Shaw local outlets joining us here tonight. It is week 4 of Friday Night Drive. We're going to get into some things in terms of some Central Illinois scores. We've got, or at least downstate, so I should include Southern Illinois as well. We have learned that Joliet Catholic has won in double overtime. See if we can get some more details on that. Oswego East tonight. So we got some words coming in from there. Seuss, what are you looking at? What's jumping out at you at the moment? What are you watching? I'm keeping an eye on Maine South and Barrington as best I can.
I dug out a couple more interesting Catholic League finals during the break there. St. Lawrence goes to 4-0 with a 17-14 win over Carmel tonight, which is a nice win for the Vikings. Yeah. And Fenwick fended off Montini. They won that game 14-10. So the other one that I was kind of keeping an eye on, I still haven't seen a final on it, but I heard that Bennett was beating St. Viator comfortably. The last I heard it was 24-0 in that game. Still haven't seen a final on that one. So right now, most of the Catholic League teams have answered the bell in the way that I expected them to tonight. I also saw that DePaul was comfortably beating St. Patrick, which would get DePaul to 4-0, wow, which would be pretty interesting for them forward. So they've got a heck of a schedule on their back end. Maybe not quite to the level of Providence like we talked about before, but still some problematic games for them coming on. But 4-0, all right, we can do some work then. I mean, really only need to get one more. So that's probably in their wheelhouse, I would think.
I believe that Barrington just tacked on a touchdown here very late, and I believe it's a 2-touchdown lead, 42-28. The scorer I'm watching here does not have a score, and yep, I got that right. 21-yard touchdown run. Jackson's got 165 on the ground. So they're under 4 minutes now in a 2-touchdown lead. Barrington in the driver's seat to try and get a win in Park Ridge. For them to get that win would be big as they head into conference play, which could be an interesting slate for them. Let's head to Oswego East. Andrew Pullman was there as we continue to check in with the Southwest Prairie tonight.
This is Joshua White from Friday Night Drive here at Oswego East, where the final score, Oswego East 13, Plainfield South 7. The game came down to the end. Plainfield South got the ball back at midfield with 2 minutes left. Oswego East, Jake Bossier with the blitz. Andy Pullman with a diving interception to preserve the win. Again, Oswego East 13, Plainfield South 7. For Oswego East, Tyrell Thomas with a 5-yard touchdown, and Caden Brigar had 2 field goals for them. For Plainfield South, Cody Hogan, their quarterback, with a 1-yard touchdown run in the second half. Actually, it was in the fourth quarter. Oswego East, and again, with the final 13-7, Oswego East forced 2 turnovers. Jamari McKay with a diving interception in the end zone in the first half. In the last minute of the first half, Oswego East improves to 2-2. Plainfield South drops to 2-2. Again, the final score, Oswego East 13, Plainfield South 7. This is Joshua White from Friday Night Drive. What happened on the interception at the end?
Man, we were in man. I had the guy, he's been running inside all day, and I realized that. So I had great pressure. My boss, my linebacker, D-line, they had great pressure. And I actually had a drop pick earlier in the game, and it really hurt me. I felt really bad about myself, but I had these awesome teammates to push me up. They put my head up, and I felt great with them.
Did you know that Jake was coming on that play? Because he seemed like he made the quarterback throw it a little bit early.
Yeah, the game plan for this, the game plan for this game was phenomenal. We have 2 great coaches, Coach Fiducia and Coach Walker. They've elevated our coaching, our player experience to the next level. And we actually had a check where we go all man, and we have 6 all linebackers and D-line rush at the same time, which we watch film, we see that O-line's not that good, and that QB, he's a scrambler, so we filled all the gaps, and we knew it was going to be a tight pass.
Yeah, how good is it just to get back to 2-2?
It feels great. Our culture, at the beginning, last year, it wasn't good, I'm not going to lie, but we've done a lot of stuff. We've done 7-on-7 in the off-season lifts, den games, Friday mornings. Our culture has really changed, and I'm really happy, because last year, I'm not going to lie, we probably would have lost that game just because we were a bunch of individualists. This year, we're actually a team.
That's interesting to hear him talk about culture the way that he did. That's real inside stuff. You don't hear it that much.
No, you really don't. And it was interesting because, they were one of the teams coming into this season that I didn't really know much or what to expect. They're obviously heading into a very difficult divisional situation. And then they kind of came out of the gate a little bit a little bit shaky, to be completely honest, to start the season. Got a little bit healthy. I saw their game against Plainfield East in week 3. There was a weird Thursday night game, so I saw them in that one. Maybe that boosted their confidence a little bit heading into this one. But you're right. It's not something that people usually openly talk about all that much. But after they had a very disappointing season in Oswego East. Last year it was not what they wanted it to be, and now they're hoping to kind of rebuild back to where they were gaining some real ground. And I mean, they were doing some real nice things, but kind of took a step back last year. Trying to figure out how to get back to that place isn't always the easiest thing to do.
I just think it's interesting. I know there's a lot of coaches watching us, and they're watching that going, wow, okay. That's the kind of stuff you need to show your kids, to say, hey, sometimes you don't have a good culture, and this is why it matters, because all of a sudden their belief, their confidence, and when you get healthy, it certainly helps as well. Look, they gave one away against Sycamore in week 2, I believe, that comeback early in the season, and that's something that probably stuck with them. And we can't do this anymore. And you could almost see that as he was talking. You could almost hear that. So I'm fascinated by that. So good for you, young man, Andy Pullman, my new favorite player of the week for that. I want to check in with Princeton and Kewanee. It's a trophy game out there. Kevin was at that one. He's got a recap.
The traveling trophy is staying at Princeton. As a matter of fact, it will sit next to Coach Pearson on the bus on the way home. Tigers beat Kewanee, longtime rival, 44-15. Casey Etheridge scores 4 touchdowns, 2 in the fourth quarter, and he racks up 190 yards as the Tigers improve to 4-0. The number 3 ranked Tigers will play at Monmouth Roseville in a game that will decide the Three Rivers Mississippi Division Championship.
What do you make of Princeton, as they've been so close these last couple of years of breaking through, but they continue to churn out talent, and not just any talent, Division I talent that keeps coming out of that school?
Yeah, they've really built something nice there over the last couple of years, and I think it kind of gets overshadowed by the fact that they haven't been able to make that big push and go all the way, and there's been significant obstacles in that process because they get into that North bracket, and for a while it seemed like they were running into IC Catholic every year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it wasn't IC Catholic, it was Byron. So, so the 3A North, it has been for a while. IC Catholic has now moved up to 4A, but for a while there, it was like you could be a really, really good football team, and you might be lucky just to get to the semifinals. That's how deep 3A North was there for a while. It was just a very difficult road to navigate. But Princeton hasn't been able to get through to the big trophy, but they still put together a spectacular program.
Yeah, the traveling trophy they get tonight as opposed to the trophy they want in November. What's your favorite trophy game? Do you have a favorite trophy game? You sent me a picture of the one.
I sent you a picture of the Tomahawk that we talked about last night. And can you verify for me that's an outstanding trophy? Come on, be honest.
Outstanding is I would put it in air quotes. Outstanding. Yeah. You know what? It's let's just say it's made with a lot of love.
Exactly.
Exactly. Absolutely. And you know what? Those are the best ones. It doesn't matter. I went to Indiana where you played for a bucket. We changed it for goodness sakes. So
I forgot to do it last week. I meant to ask the longtime sports writer Mike Clark what the genesis was of the TF North, TF South trophy, that for some reason includes a shoe and a mushroom. And I don't really know what the connection is or why the mushroom is involved. I really don't know, but I do need to find that out.
I did cover a TF North, TF South game one time, and it was a thing. It was interesting. I'll say that. It was certainly worth the entertainment for sure. All right, we got a lot of scores rolling in, so let's do this here as we go through. Let's go to the Duquesne real quick because Geneva put 63 at Lake Park tonight. And then Wheaton North got back on the wagon a bit, but they struggled. St. Charles East might have something there waking up, but can they get over the hump against the big teams? They were pretty close against Wheaton North tonight, 27-19 the final there.
Yeah, they hung in there, and then Wheaton Warrenville South also picked up a shutout win over Glenbard North. I noticed that earlier too, 31-0 for them. Okay. So for the most part, when you looked at these games going in, they went the way that they were supposed to go. Obviously, we talked about it before. The Batavia St. Charles North game technically qualifies for the game that was the competitive one, even though that final score doesn't show it.
Right.
So I just saw a doozy just pop up on the.
I did too. Yep.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? There it is.
Yeah, it was at the Altoff and
Yes.
the Unity score, 53-52. We're going to see if we can get some details on that. That takes us to Southern Illinois. We're in Central Illinois real quick. Just let me point out some scores that crossed here. Leroy 42-7 over Hayward. Crete-Monee, not too far south of I-80, but 63-6 over Thornwood. Looking through what caught my eye, let's see here. We had Quincy Notre Dame 18-7 over SHG tonight. It's different at SHG right now. Quincy Notre Dame might be really good and better than anybody knows in the state.
Well, someone reached out to me from the QND program this week to ask me what the cut line was for 2A enrollment. So they're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, is that there's a distinct possibility, and it looks like Quincy Notre Dame is going to make the playoffs, that they could go into the postseason as a 2A team that, like you said, nobody's really talking about. But my goodness, I mean, I know Sacred Heart Griffin is not where they've been the last couple of years, but come on, that is an extremely impressive victory for Quincy Notre Dame in any context. So, and if they can get themselves through that schedule, which includes a litany of pretty decent 5A, 6A programs, and just get themselves into that 2A draw, I mean, that's a kind of equivalent to me as to like when you have somebody like Montini going to the 3A playoffs playing the schedule that they do. Like you'll come in there and you'll look across the way and go, wait a minute, those guys don't have 75 players over there. What is this? I mean, that's that's a whole different animal. So Quincy, that's an impressive win for them. It puts them in great position, especially, and they're trending 2A. That's just the reality of the situation. And if they get in, I mean, they're going to be real dangerous in that field.
Say in 2A here or 3 or 1A, maybe Salt Fork was the team that I was watching for a second there, and they got I lost it for 27-6 over Watseka tonight. So teams that were getting votes in some of the statewide polls. Geneseo got a win over United Township, but it wasn't easy. 16-14 the final there. U-High shutting out Lincoln 43-0 tonight. Did not see that coming in terms of a shutout. Johnston City 22-20 over Fairfield. Glenwood upsets Rochester tonight, 17-7. What do you make of Rochester going down?
Well, Glenwood scored those points early and then just kind of buckled in, which you don't see people do against Rochester. Usually you score early, that means you're in a shootout with Rochester and you're going to have to trade with them all night long. So the fact that we didn't add on any later in that game, I think that might have been the halftime score, to be completely honest with you. It's completely out of character, to be honest with you, from both of those programs. I mean, both those programs are capable of putting up points in bunches. So to see that it turned into kind of like a defensive struggle has to be a little bit surprising to pretty much everybody involved in that game.
Williamsville 14-6 over Pittsfield. Triad over Waterloo, a final of 7-0. Those are some of the scores we saw so far across Central and Southern Illinois. Prairie Ridge 35-13 over Huntley. That pretty much went about how you thought it would go tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, we're seeing what we always seem to see. Get halfway through the season, look up at the standings board, and Prairie Ridge and Cary Grove are the only undefeated teams in the box. So, I mean, that's where we're at, and we're heading towards the collision course that seems to be a yearly event in that league. But Prairie Ridge, new coach, so you were wondering how well they would transition to that, how smooth that would go. So far, looks like the sailing is pretty smooth for them.
Yep, and it's Cary Grove at Prairie Ridge next week, and that game is in Crystal Lake at Prairie Ridge. So that's going to be the one that probably decides the league and does so in week 5. So those are the scores that we have at the moment. What are you watching right now as we watch a couple things go down to the wire, trying to see if Barrington can hang on, and it looks like they might do so. Looks like they trying to run out the clock here as they're on the other side of Maine South's 50-yard line with a touchdown, and I believe they're in the final minute and a half. So I think they're going to be able to run out the clock at this point. It looks like Barrington will go to 4-0 on the season.
Yeah, that's a good solid win, even though when we come out of this, we're talking about another team that didn't expect to be at 1-3 at this point in time, which is Maine South. For them, it's salvageable because let's be honest, they've dominated their division for years and years and years. I think there's honestly maybe only one team in there that I think can really maybe push them. So in that sense, they should be fine once they get back into divisional play, even though they're 1-3. For Barrington, it's kind of on the other end of the stick. I think there are some teams that are prepared to take a shot at them. So for them to get through the non-con at 4-0 with some decent wins on their resume gives them a lot of breathing room as they move into what appears to be what is going to be a very difficult division race on a week-to-week basis.
Souce, the Schaumburg Saxons are 4-0. They win tonight over Niles West 21-14. I'm sure if I talked to you August 1st, you had the Saxons going 4-0, right?
No, I'm going to be an honest man. I'm going to tell you, no, that's not what's going to happen.
Nope.
So that's you look at, like I said, that conference is stacking up a lot different than I expected it to be. I think everybody's good. To be completely honest,
they're all good.
I think they're all good. Are they all great? I don't know yet, but are they all good? Yes, I think they're all good. I think every single team in that conference is good.
Just looking ahead, Palatine at Schaumburg next week. All right, so I would imagine that's probably Schaumburg has one game after this at home, so that's got to be their homecoming at 4-0. So it's going to be off. This is going to be chaos for that one. Hoffman Estates goes to Friend. Those are two 4-0 teams next week. And then you have Conant. Well, you get to go to Barrington, and you get to do that to be the Barrington Saturday homecoming spectacular, which is have you been to Barrington's homecoming on a Saturday?
I have never
really
been.
fun.
I actually made my first trip to Barrington last year for one of those Thursday night ones that they have in the season.
Yeah.
So that was my first. I'd seen Barrington live before, but never at home. Last year was the first time I ever had actually been to Barrington for a game.
Did you get a pork chop sandwich? Because
I absolutely did. I got a pork chop sandwich to eat, and then I put a pork chop and another one in my bag to eat on the way home. So I knew what I was doing.
Wow, that's
I had
stuff.
I had been advised that was something that I needed to do. So I don't fool around when someone recommends a quality pork chop sandwich to me. I'm not messing around.
Yeah, and we'll take your suggestions for your pork chop sandwiches. I would say Sycamore is also outstanding. I believe it's Barrington, it's Sycamore, and it's the rest. That's just my palate in terms of pork chops.
Actually, my favorite one is in Gilman.
Ooh, at Iroquois West?
That is my favorite pork chop sandwich is in Gilman.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, so we veered off course a little bit, but that's important. This is the
final. I have an interesting final here for you.
Yeah, what do you got?
I was wondering heading into a couple weeks ago, I was like, I wonder if West Aurora can beat South Elgin. They're playing pretty well. Can they do it? Yeah, they can beat South Elgin. They won 50-7 tonight.
Oh my goodness.
West Aurora is now 4-0 on the season and playing really good football. So
okay, well, I would imagine it's safe to say they have a really good chance of running the table here at this point.
Yes, I would think they have an excellent chance of running the table. Yes.
I don't know who they have left here, but it is a final for Maine South, Barrington 42-35. They hold on to get to 4-0. Looking at the West Aurora schedule, coming up next, Bartlett, Ridgewood, and then Larkin, East Aurora, Streamwood. It's going to be fine. But a 9-0 West Aurora team in Class 8A, that all of a sudden becomes a fascinating 132 or 2 versus 31 matchup. Whoever is that 5-4 or 4-5 team that has to go to West Aurora.
Yeah, I think ultimately the way it's kind of shaking down, I think that probably lands them with maybe like a 4 seed, to be honest with you. Because
you know what? Because of points.
Their points are not going to be very good. So so as long as there's some other 9-0 teams are going to jump past them. But if there are less 9-0 teams, yes, they could end up on a 2 or a 3 line. But I think the reality is they're probably a 4 or a 5. But yeah, it definitely is a situation where you look at that on paper and you're like 9-0 West Aurora, maybe a 4-5 Glenbard West. I'm just saying that's kind of what we might be looking at.
Yeah, and you know what? In West Aurora's defense, they got the right crossovers in their league. They got Ridgewood and Glenbard East, so they need to root for them to do some things to at least keep them in the best position possible. I don't know how you do that.
Right.
Even if there's like 4 or 5 9-0 teams and they drop to the 6th seed, that's not a bad year, but it's just, it has nothing to do with points at this point. It has everything to do with which matchup you get with how the seed lines go. So that's really how you're going to have to pay attention to that. So that'll be fascinating to watch in these next few weeks for sure. York gets a win over Oak Park, 42-21. The York Dukes, probably the least talked about team in that conference that has a lot of good teams.
Yeah, just really quietly going about their business. This is what York does. We're going to see over the next couple of weeks that now they're getting into the meat of that schedule against the opponents that are kind of maybe drawing that headlines. So that's what we look at with York is when they get into that, what do they do? And I fully expect them to do what they always do: keep games, tight, defensive natured. They're not going to run away from you. They're not going to let you run away from them. That's kind of what the blueprint has been for them. I know there's obviously a coaching change there, but it doesn't look like much has changed. It looks like most of the things that they've kind of laid down over the last couple of years have continued. So York is a team that, like you said, not a lot of people talking about them.
Right.
Probably the wrong stance to take with them. They're clearly a pretty solid football team. And they move into the games later in their schedule. The Downers Grove North, the Glenbard West, the Lions, all those are coming up in the last 5 weeks of the season. So, I mean, obviously York's schedule takes an interesting turn. Not to say that they have exactly played slouches to this point, because that's not really what has happened either. But, but now we'll get a much better idea over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
All right, we're going to take a quick break before we wrap up. You and I, in our last half hour, you're going to go deep into the dark depths of the evening hours as you compile your stuff. But when we come back, you want to take a dive into the Middle Illini, see what's going on down there, because interesting scores that are crossing as we speak. I'm holding out for a recap from Eddie Carifio on that Sycamore Rochelle game. So I want to see how that game went down. And a whole lot of scores that are flying on the feed, so keep them coming. We're seeing the feed. We'll go through them next here. Week 4, Friday Night Drive here on Shaw Local.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interest. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
Hey, football fans, listen up. I'm Top there, and I drive a Hawk. I got it from my friends at Hawk Volkswagen. So drive what I drive. Drive a Hawk. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet, or online at hawkvw.com.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
Do you ever wonder where the profits go when you shop at a big box store? Hi, this is Patty from Oliver's Corner Market. When you shop at Oliver's, you can rest assured that the profits stay local, supporting other local businesses and charities. Find us at the corner of Britton and Bradshaw in Dixon.
All right, welcome back. Our final half hour, at least as the games are coming in, and then you will talk with folks for quite some time. Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie with you here. Before we went to break, we mentioned the Middle Illini and some wildness happening down there tonight. How about Metamora, 40-37 over Morton, the final in that one. And Dunlip, or I'm sorry, I should say this, take this again. You can't figure out Washington. Washington beat Pekin tonight, 19-9.
Yep.
Who's the best team in that league? I have no idea.
I don't know. I really genuinely don't know. I resolved that it was Pekin last week, and now I'm obviously not so sure about that anymore. Where Washington got beat pretty badly, early on in the year by a couple of quality opponents, but looks like maybe they've righted the ship. Don't know if I'm ready to anoint them the best team in that conference yet, but I don't have an answer for who it might be instead. So maybe it is.
Downers Grove North, 54-0 over Proviso West. The Downers Grove doing Downers Grove things. What makes them so good? I've paid attention, but for those who haven't, there's a good quarterback on that roster, but what else do they have that's put them in position to have this powerful resurgence of their athletic program, really, football and basketball?
Well, even though they didn't win the game last year, I was impressed with the way that they approached the 7A state championship game last year with Mount Carmel. And then, even though, like I said, it wasn't a particularly close football game, but Downers Grove North never played like they were whipped, if you would, like defeated badly. They kept doing what they did. They worked hard. They never quit. And usually sometimes you get caught up in those platitudes, but it really kind of impressed me in the sense that even pre-game, it was like, we're going to go do our things and we're going to do the best we can to be competitive in that football game. And I think that it's a pervasive belief that they can do it. And they ended up getting to a state championship game last year. Those kids that were there for that, those kids that are coming up through the program, watched, and it's just kind of, the success is kind of feeding itself now. It's like, hey, we've done this before. Let's do it again, and let's do it more dominating this time around, because they've been pretty dominating out of the box. Their margins of victory have been huge. They haven't really been pushed at all yet, and they are rolling. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So, I think this is a team that right now is at the apex of its confidence and believing that it can do just about anything.
That team that can get there, once that team breaks through, and this is just kind of a statement overall, education system we have, socioeconomic system we have, if you have the resources and then you show success and then those resources come in after that, you're going to sustain things. I'm talking to you, Downers Grove North. I'm talking to you, Napervilles and Hinsdales and the Barringtons. And this is how you keep Batavia. Good Lord, who knows? How much money they raise to bring in. Once you show that success and break through, it is very hard to go the other way if you get everything rolling. And that's why it's so tricky to get through that one time and then to hang on to it. So that's why Downers Grove North, you laid it all out there, but that's a reason to pay attention to see how long this can go and how high that success level can be, especially if they stay in 7A, where the Mount Carmels will always be lurking, at some point, or a Batavia, or even the teams in their conference will test them constantly. So curious to see how they do the rest of the way here. So a 54-0 win. Downstate scores, Dupo scored in the last second to beat Westland, 45-41. So that was a not really a one that had a lot to do in terms of rankings or playoff points in the moment, but I'm sure it'll have some indication down the road. Dwight Gardner South Wilmington, they started the season unbeaten no more. Marquette got them tonight, 26-21.
Yeah, they were ahead considerably early in that game, so Marquette must have rallied late in that one, because I think I saw them up 21-7 early in that game. So a good bounce back there for Marquette picking up that win. So Dwight off to a good start regardless of that loss. 3-1 for them, and that program is a good sign for moving forward. So kind of an eclectic schedule for all the teams in that conference this year. So some of those teams have to play each other twice, and it's kind of both of those programs are in a position to make at least punch their playoff tickets, I would say.
The pride of moments of victorious team once again.
Yep.
Are they 4-0 now? Give them some love. Give some love.
Yeah, that's a good, solid 2A football team. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They have a lot of interesting players on offense. They're a team that can score a lot of points, and they've really kind of built the program back up. It was funny. Like I said earlier, I was at the Kankakee Normal Community game earlier tonight, and I noticed early in the game that the side judge and officiating for the game was a former Moments running back who I once saw run for 350 yards plus in consecutive games. Yeah, no joke. Like each week I went back to the office and was like, where does that rank on the state record board? They're like, why are you talking about that? That happened last week. I'm like, no, it happened again tonight. So yeah, so it was interesting to see him out giving back to the game. I love to see that whenever I see a former player or somebody that I used to cover back in high school out there giving back to the game and contributing in a way of officiating.
That's great.
I went over and gave him a little dap when he recognized that I was standing over there, because it was good to see him. But definitely a fun time seeing him again tonight. But Moments, good football team. It'll be interesting to see if they can maneuver some of the stronger teams in the Vermilion Valley over the course of the second half of the season.
Right.
How they do against Bismarck Henning, how they do against Salt Fork. I think those are kind of going to be the measuring stick games for Moments.
Pay attention to that for sure. We got, Oregon, a winner over Winnebago, 35-12. Game of the year in the Nick 10, Belvedere North over Boylan, 34-20. So it looks like Belvedere North is your team that keep an eye on to go potentially 9-0 and run the table there in that closed conference.
That actually doesn't surprise me. When I looked at that game heading into there, and Boylan hasn't been the Boylan level machine in the early going year.
Kind of like in that mid-level of,
there have been
we going to drop off or are we going to
couple of close games against teams that I really wouldn't expect them to have that much trouble with. So Belvedere North coming out of that game with a win doesn't really shock me all that much.
That may be a bit of a surprise for you. The Bennett Red Wings are now 4-0, 23-16 over St. Viator. Bennett's the one Catholic League team that nobody's talking about. Even Viator got a little love last week.
No, they're definitely not. And that's. I mean, I'll admit I still don't know that much about them at this point in time. I best find out, I guess. That's basically what's coming on now. But that was a game that I was really, really intrigued by. I wanted to see what would happen there, because those teams have games against one another. They have difficult crossover games remaining. So the team that got to 4-0 out of this pack tonight, like we were talking about before with DePaul, puts them in a really good spot, because, I mean, things could go a little bit south here in the second half of the season. And really all they need to do to make sure that they get into playoffs right now, heck, in some cases they might already honestly be in. But all they really need to do is get one more. And I think that that's possible inside of their schedule, obviously.
Eureka is 4-0. They get El Paso Gridley 14-0, and they'll get Clinton next week. So Eureka, is that a team to pay attention to make some noise here as we get deeper in the season?
It's always interesting with Eureka because they play in a predominantly 1A, 2A type of conference, but for playoff enrollment purposes, they jump up to 3. So it's always kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
Hey, can they make that leap? I mean, they've had some success. They've made it a couple of rounds before, but as far as like measuring like where exactly they're at, it's always really hard to tell, because it's a different animal going from 1A to 3A in terms of the postseason.
Stevenson, a 36-0 win over Mundelein. I believe Mundelein was 3-0 coming in, and they've done this a couple times, but they've had a good start, and then it's like, well, and then the bottom drops out, and you wonder if the confidence goes with it. I don't think Mundelein can get to 5 wins, but this is a good measuring stick to figure it out. In the meantime, Stevenson needed to right the ship a little bit, and they had a good chance to do so with the Mustangs tonight.
Yeah, it has been a thing with Mundelein over the last couple of years that their schedule is very backloaded in terms of its quality. So it's not really it's not surprising to see them get to 3-0. It's also not surprising to see them have trouble tacking on to that 3-0 after getting there.
I'm not seeing a whole lot that's currently happening right now. What about you? Are you seeing anything that I should be paying attention to, or that everybody should be paying attention to?
We are getting a lot of early finals tonight. I mean, granted, it is 11, but we're not seeing a lot of games that are like hanging up there. I talked about it a little bit earlier. The Sandburg win over Lincoln Way West is a pretty solid one in my mind. Another team I'd like to give a little shout out to, Bradley Bourbonnais, going to 4-0 tonight.
There you go.
With a comfortable win over Rock Island. So they're another one of those teams in the Southwest Valley. When you look at their schedule, you're like, oh man, like there's a lot. So for them to be at 4-0 puts them in a great situation, because now you can start thinking. Now you can start dreaming on it a little bit. Like, what if we go 4-1 the rest of the way? Or
I was going to say, what does 7-2 do for you there?
You can start to see things. So, so that was pretty interesting. In terms of that, we talked a little bit about Lincoln Way Central and DeKalb earlier. That was a game that kind of stood out to me. Argo dropping in the ranks of the undefeated. Shepherd gets a win tonight, which I think Shepherd's quietly building it back up a little bit too, I think. That was a 25-10 win for them. And Richards took Oak Lawn to the mat tonight, and Richards is playing some pretty good football too. So some interesting results there out of the South Suburban tonight.
Shepherd now 3-1 after beating Argo tonight. They'll have Evergreen Park followed by the two Oak Lawns, Revis and Eisenhower the rest of the way. So I mean, at that point, you think, and you kind of want their one loss was Joliet West. It was a 21-point loss there, but there's 3-6 last year, 3-1 start now. You equaled your win total. That's something to be said for there. I was going to say something I totally forgot. This is kind of where this show goes sometimes. I was still waiting to see if we can get a couple of reports. Oh, the one thing I wanted to bring up here is that we get into the heart of homecoming season, and you get some buildings that are juiced a little differently, and you also get those teams that come in knowing they have a chance to spoil homecoming. The most I've seen a school have on their schedule, like in terms of whether they're hosting or going to a homecoming game, was 4. Like they hosted 1 and traveled to 3. That's the most I've ever seen. But you get sick of that after a while. You're like, oh God, we got to do the king and queen again. We got to do all this. We got to bring the floats across and all that stuff. So
I always feel like we're gonna find some program that reacts to it like the Last Dance Michael Jordan footage where he says, and I took that personally. Yeah. So it's just like, because there was always, and I don't know if this is so much the case anymore, but like sometimes you might schedule an opponent on homecoming that you feel like you're going to beat. So I don't know if that's logistically the way it happens anymore, but I know it had happened in the past. So
sure.
If you're that team that's getting lined up with a whole bunch of homecoming games, eventually you're going to be like, hey, what the heck, man?
Well, it's nice at the college level when you have these schedules like 8 years in advance, but at the high school level, it's usually just maybe 1 or 2. Right. Whereas these conferences say, okay, we're going to do this for a 2-year schedule, and then 2 years, and then 2 years, so that they can make, especially when you have split divisions, because you want to have those crossovers to be fair as best they can, and there's a formula, something like that. So, I would say typically they don't do that nowadays, but the rivalry games that are backloaded, that usually helps you avoid having that crosstown or that neighbor rival. Like, a Moments doesn't want Clifton Central coming to their homecoming. No, that's not ideal. That's or a St. Charles going to a Geneva of any kind. Forget Batavia for a second, but you get the idea that Sycamore doesn't want to go to Kalen for that homecoming. Actually, they would love to go. Kalen does not want that to happen either way.
Right.
So usually they try and just make sure that the schedule has the rivalries in a certain spot so that the homecoming stands out. And if you look at it historically, homecomings used to be in the state of Illinois like mid to early October, but as the season was pushed back. Now it's started to move towards the middle of September. Like this next week is the sweet spot of homecoming weeks. And then you have one more, and then they're kind of done. The earliest I've seen was week 2. I saw it last year. It was St. Charles East. It was Labor Day weekend. They had homecoming weekend. I've never seen that before. So that's the earliest I've ever seen it. But for the most part, you got to get to weeks 4, 5, and 6, somewhere in there for their homecoming. So, my school, the Central Rockets, plays the employers, so to speak. They had a 49-0 win over Crystal Lake Central. It was their first shutout at homecoming since 2003. They're off to their best start in 2012. We talked about Cary Grove and Prairie Ridge being top 2. The old Central Rockets are like, we'll come in right underneath it if no one else wants to at this point, because Huntley and Jacobs are kind of like, and everyone else is falling off a bit.
Yeah, and you know it as well as I do. I mean, this is a program that's had some opportunities in the past to maybe punch those playoff tickets. Yeah. And they've gotten themselves in a bind late in the season and not been able to get a win maybe that they should have, or kind of was a toss-up. They haven't been able to finish the deal, but sitting there now at 3-1, lot more breathing room than in the past when you're rattling into week 8 where you're like, I got to get a win this week. So, that's definitely a momentum changer for them.
These last 2 years at that school, going in 4-4 into week 9, they got the win over Cary Grove, the down Cary Grove team, and they thought, hey, we'll go to McHenry and we'll get a win. That didn't happen. No. And then the following year, it was, well, we got Huntley coming to us, and they didn't get a win, but they played competitive. So it's like they've had 2 different styles of 4-4 going into that week 9 matchup. And so to get to 3 now, 3-1 for them, the best start since 2012. So they haven't won a playoff game since 2006. I mean, it's been a long time at school. There's going to be a juice in the building the next couple of weeks, and that's just going to be fun. All right, so, what else? And Marengo says they had homecoming tonight as well. So homecoming for the Indians. So certainly curious to see who had homecoming, who didn't. That adds to the mystique and the drama sometimes of these scores that we have coming in. So sometimes those are helpful as well. Other scores that have jumped out as we're still kind of going through them is and also let's go back to the top here. We've got Loyola wins tonight. We had Mount Carmel win tonight. We had a double overtime classic with Marist and Joliet Catholic. Don't really have a ton of details on that, but sounds like that was a fabulous game. And
I do know
some teams righted themselves.
Joliet Catholic kicked a field goal as time expired just to push that game into overtime. So I did pick up that nugget of information. So definitely it sounds like it was a wild one there. And like I said, I'm pretty confident that I saw earlier in the game that they were down 17-3. So was able to get back into that somehow. So I'll be interested to find out how that one matriculated through, because it definitely looked like Joliet Catholic put on quite a rally in the second half.
Bismarck Henning 50-8 over Iroquois West. So there you go. Yep. Pork chops are still.
They can drown their solace in some pork chop sandwiches.
And some barbecue sauce for sure. Let's see. So as we go through, week 4 here, when you start putting the brackets together and you start projecting out, you pretty much have a good feel on teams that should be where they actually are. And then there's those teams that sort of risen up. At this point, does anyone really jump out after this week to surprise you, or are they already on your radar for the most part?
Well, I think at this point I've slowly acquired enough data on people that, there are going to be some upsets that kind of throw me off. That happens every single week. But now I'm finally starting to get where I feel like, hey, and I thought this was important coming into the week. We had 104 teams that were undefeated. We had 12 matchups of teams that were 3-0 against 3-0. But I just felt like there were a lot of those teams out of the 104 that I still was not sure about. And I felt like week 4 presented a lot of opportunities to either convince me that team is for real, or maybe make me downgrade them a little bit. Even maybe if they won a game and maybe didn't win it as convincingly as I thought maybe a dominant team should. So that was what I was kind of trying to glean from week 4. And I've seen them already. I've seen some scores. Obviously, I'll get into it a little bit more later. But there have been some of those undefeated teams that were playing teams that had 1 or 2 losses, and they lost that game. So there's going to be some teams that I reevaluate again, just based on the fact that, maybe they're not quite as strong as I thought they were. And then there'll be others that I'm like, okay, that convinces me. Maybe the first 3 games, they didn't play the strongest competition. Maybe week 4 gave me a better idea of, hey, this is a quality football team. I need to reevaluate whether or not they're ready to make a full big step up, or is this a moderate step? That's where we're really kind of at.
It's interesting when you get to this time of year and you start to sort things out, and you also start to project yourselves. You're like, okay, so we're 3-1. Can we get to 5-1? And then what happens when we have this slot of teams, so on and so forth. And the one that I look at in terms of which conference could shake this out the weirdest and not have any idea is the Interstate 8, just because there's so many good teams. I mean, Rochelle going down tonight, that is the result not surprising, but I would not be surprised if they went 8-1 the rest of the way here, as they just pick right back up where they left off. And is Sycamore 9-0 worthy at this point? Can Morris figure this out, or is Canelan any good?
I mean, and even to a lesser respect, I was wondering what was going to happen with LaSalle Peru because I just saw the final. Morris beat them 52-14 tonight.
Yeah. I
kind of feel for LaSalle Peru because I don't think they're necessarily that bad of a football team. I just think that there are 4 really dynamic teams ahead of them in the pecking order right now, and it's going to take a pretty Herculean effort for them to pick off one of those 4. Like they're gonna have to get one of them. That's the reality of the situation. It's going to take a pretty big effort for them to do that.
All right, our last couple of minutes before you fly solo deep into the night here, we'll have a highlight reel that we can show you in just a second. But you know what? We did this last week. I like doing it again. How about some Southern Illinois scores? Let's go down there and see what's happening. What jumps out to you with Johnston City getting a win over the Fairfield Mules tonight, 44-26?
Well, the Black Diamond is an interesting conference because you've got teams down there that are traditionally pretty strong, and it's kind of a divided conference. So that Johnston City Fairfield game is always pretty important for conference stacking.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cesar's a really good team this year as well.
They won tonight, 32-0 over Carmi.
Putting those teams out at the top is always kind of an interesting thing to figure out. The one thing that I'm really interested in terms of Black Diamond teams in Johnston City specifically is they're one of the conferences that had a forfeit loss, and a lot of people, maybe haven't even noticed this. They actually rescheduled a game in week 7 when they had to pick up a game, and I think it's a pretty interesting one. They're playing Dixon in week 7, so I think that's a pretty interesting non-con game between 2 teams that have made some playoff fields, advanced a couple of rounds. Granted, it's in different classes. But you always like to see that. Just it's a complete blend of, Johnston City's way down in Southern Illinois. Dixon's up in the northern portion. Completely contrasting styles. 2 teams that would never play ordinarily. I'm glad that they were able to get together on that one.
Dixon won tonight for sure. And, part of me wants to look it up to see if I can just figure it out really quickly in just terms of directions. Dixon, Illinois. How long would it take to get from Dixon down to Johnston City? What's your guess on that one right now, Seuss, as I look it up?
Oh, I'm going to say 5 hours.
Well, you're right on the money for the most part, but I'm going to give you some bus time because the buses, they can't crank 85 like you and I can. So about 5.5 hours. That's all 39, 72, and 57 the whole way down there. It's a fun trip for sure. And real quick, as a Cahokia winner, 44-21 over the Carbondale Terriers. Remember, SIU Salukis, Carbondale Terriers. It makes sense. It's like the Evanston Wildcats and the Northwestern Wildcats. Final thoughts. And Benton went down tonight to DuQuoin, 21-10. Just last one that jumped off the page for me. Final thoughts on what you saw tonight around the state and as those scores have come in.
It was once again, I thought it was another interesting night in the Catholic League. We got some separation. We got some things figured out. Definitely looking at, moving forward, the next couple of weeks, I think are still going to be pretty fascinating in that conference. Batavia putting down the game that they did tonight, finishing it off in the second half was pretty impressive to me. And to a lesser extent, like the game that I went to tonight, I thought that, Normal Community came back a little bit and made it a little bit closer, but I was really impressed with what I saw from Kankakee tonight. I think that's going to be a pretty dangerous team in 6A.
Yes,
Granted,
I agree.
They got to deal with the same monster that they had to deal with last year on their side of the bracket.
But they've seen it before. Yeah.
Yeah. last year I believe that was a quarterfinal round game.
Yep.
But that's a good team. That's a very interesting team, and they're very potentially explosive and dangerous for anybody that comes in the power because, Normal Community is a Class 7A ranked team, and Kankakee really, especially in the first half, really put them in
took the wood to them.
Yep.
All right, you're going to keep going after the break, and then I will see you on Monday for our podcast. Join us Monday night as we recap what we saw in week number 4. So for Steve Soucie and for all of our reporters, my name is Matt Rodewald. Some highlights as we close out our first portion of the show here, Friday Night Drive here at Shaw Local.
Hey, football fans, listen up. I'm Tom Thayer, and I drive a Hawk. I got it from my friends at Hawk Volkswagen. So drive what I drive. Drive a Hawk. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet or online at hawkvw.com.
Do you ever wonder where the profits go when you shop at a big box store? Hi, this is Patty from Oliver's Corner Market. When you shop at Oliver's, you can rest assured that the profits stay local, supporting other local businesses and charities. Find us at the corner of Britton and Bradshaw in Dixon.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interest. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
All right, guys, let's start breaking it down. I was able to get some finals in tonight. We got a fair amount of them sitting in here. Okay, so starting right at the top, like we usually do, starting with the Apollo Conference. Right now, I'm missing one score out of the Apollo. I don't have Mattoon and Effingham from this evening. I've now checked everywhere that I usually check for these things. So, going to start working my way around here, but I was able to get quite a few of them put in earlier. So, like I said, in the Big Northern, or excuse me, in the Apollo, I'm looking for Effingham and Mattoon so far this evening. And I know you got me, Weather. I know that Matt said that Dixon won, but I never saw an actual final. So if you could help me out there with the Dixon-Genoa final. I'm looking for that one right now, too. I'm doing good, Paul. How about yourself? Thank you. 40-7 Dixon. So right now, just waiting to see if I can track down a final on that before I move on. Effingham and Mattoon. Okay, so going through the Big 12 night. Oh, wow, Bloomington. Nice win over Normal Community West tonight. Bloomington 4-0 for the first time in a long time. It's a good win there. Danville loses to Centennial. That was different than I thought. Okay. So now I'm kind of moving through the Big 12 a little bit. Champaign Central wins 59-6 over Urbana. Normal Community loses to Kankakee. Peoria. I know that they won. Wow, Peoria scored 86 points tonight. 86-12 over Peoria Manual. Peoria Notre Dame put up 65. Lots of points in the Big 12 tonight. My goodness. Okay, on the Black Diamond. Sesser wins 32-0. Okay. So moving to the Black Diamond now. Yeah, I don't actually know if that's a record, but it certainly shocked me when I saw it, because I saw that Byron was winning 51-6 after the first quarter. Wouldn't surprise me to find out that it wasn't a record, but that's an awful lot of points regardless. Okay. So I'm having trouble with quite a few of these Black Diamond scores tonight. Hamilton County, Edwards County, Johnston City, Fairfield. So I'm missing 3 right now. Effingham, Mattoon, Hamilton County, Edwards County, Johnston City, and Fairfield. So let's see. Now I'm going to go to the Cahokia, Illinois. Dupo over Westland, 45-41. Sparta over Chester over Sparta, 49-2. Okay, Carlisle and Redbud, 20-47. Redbud 47-20. Okay. So let's move on to the Cahokia, Mississippi then. All right, so just to repeat, missing 3 scores: Effingham, Mattoon, Hamilton County, Edwards County, and Johnston City and Fairfield. Salem beats Wood River, 42-8. Roxana beats Columbia, 14-7. Thank you, sir. Johnston City with that win. Going to add another one to the list. Central and Freeburg. Haven't found that one yet either. So still stuck at 3. Okay. So I actually have all the Catholic League scores in, but I think 2. So I'm going to fly right through those. Bennett. Where are you at? Okay, so Bennett wins 23-16 over St. Viator. So there's that situation. And Leo and Marion Catholic, I missed that one too. So that's 33-18. Okay. So all the way through the Catholic League. Now we're on to the Central State 8. That was crazy tonight. I saw a couple of scores there earlier. I didn't remember the finals, but Glenwood over Rochester tonight, that's a little bit surprising, I got to admit. I believe Glenwood's a good football team. I just didn't think they'd top Rochester tonight. So nice win for them. $45-17 that final turned out to be. My goodness. University all over Lincoln. Okay. So whoops. Don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, there we go. I had double screens up, so I was getting an echo there. Somehow I got clicked out. All right, so now I'm in the Central State 8. And trying to figure out the Decatur MacArthur, Decatur Eisenhower score from tonight. And I just found it. So that one's done. 55-12 for MacArthur. So right now I'm missing Effingham and Mattoon, Hamilton County, Edwards County, and Breeze Central and Freeburg. Those are the 3 that I do not have. Geez, what is up with the big point totals tonight? Jacksonville was 76 points tonight against Lanfield. My goodness. Big points all over the place. Notre Dame wins 18-7 over Sacred Heart Griffin. That's a huge win for them. And now I'm looking for Springfield and Springfield Southeast. Yep, still looking for that one. I haven't found that one in any of my sources. That's interesting. I hadn't seen that yet. When did that come out, Weather? Oh, it's really high, Paul. It's over 100. I can't remember what exactly it is. Thank you for the Springfield score. Okay, so now we're moving through some crossover games. Interesting evening tonight. I don't think there were a lot of upsets. There were a couple of interesting results. More so in the sense that maybe the scores were a little bit different than I thought, but I wouldn't classify as a whole bunch of games as huge upsets tonight. And now I'm looking for Elk Grove Village and Niles North. So 4 games right now. Effingham, Mattoon, Hamilton County, Edwards County, Breeze Central, Freeburg, and Elk Grove and Niles North. Those are the 4 that I'm missing right now. Okay, moving on to the Chicagoland Christian. I know I got all those scores. I just haven't inputted them yet. Good win for Wheaton Academy in that league tonight, beating Hope Academy 42-14. Chicago Christian over Marion Central Catholic 27-6. That was one of those that I thought, looking at it earlier this week, that was pivotal for both of those teams. Bishop McNamara over Christ the King gives Christ the King their first loss of the season. And Aurora Christian easily over Elgin St. Edward. So that's all done. And now we move down to the Prairie. Ottawa Marquette 26-21 over Dwight. Seneca keeps rolling along 36-12 over St. Bede. Okay. So right now I'm moving into the public league now. I got a lot of those scores in earlier today, but of course there's always one missing, and that is Hyde Park and Noble Johnson. Don't have that one. Okay. All right, so I'm looking for, I think that's a Saturday game when it got moved, because that is not showing up on my, so that's going to spare me that one. Yes, that's now Saturday. So Munson and Taft got moved to Saturday. And then Lane and Whitney Young did play tonight. I just don't remember who won. Pretty sure Lane did, but I'm not positive. Young beats Lane 14-13, so that's a good win for Whitney Young. Okay, Hyde Park and Noble Johnson, still missing that one. So I got a couple more here. Prosser beats Marine 25-6. 6:25. Okay. All right, so other than the Hyde Park Noble Johnson game, I have all the public league scores. So moving along pretty good here. Yeah, I switched it up today. I got the A&W going right now. Sunkist is usually like a 1 a.m. jolt, to be honest with you. Still too early for that. Okay. So Batavia. Put that final in. And then Lombard North loses to Wheaton-Warrensville South. 31-0. Wheaton North 27-19. And let's see. St. Charles East loses 21-22. Okay. On to the Fox Valley. Got to put these in. Burlington Central wins 49-0. Crystal Lake Central loses. And the Crown loses to McHenry 14-13. So McHenry wins that one. Huntley loses to Prairie Ridge 35-13. And Crystal Lake South beats Hampshire 9-0. Okay. So now we're moving on to the heart of Central Illinois, the large division. I didn't get any of those scores in. So just a reminder, looking for the following 4 score up. We got 3. Thanks, Paul. Effingham and Mattoon is in there. So looking for Hamilton County, Edwards County, Breeze Central, Freeburg, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson. Yeah, Huntley hasn't really been what you're saying. Yeah, up to the standard so far. I think that's fair. Also think their schedule is a little front-loaded in terms of difficulty, so it will be interesting to see how they do over the next couple of weeks. I would agree, though. Not quite what we're used to from them. So, like I said, now we're moving into the heart of Illinois, heart of Central Illinois. Tri-Valley over to Deer Creek, Mackinac, 49-14. Clinton over Ridgeview, 23-14. Eureka over El Paso Gridley. Okay, and now I got to go check somewhere else for Tremont and Shelbyville. Okay, a little bit of a technical problem here, guys. Hang on one second. Okay. All right, so Looking for Tremont and Shelbyville. Five to 12. Thanks, guys. Okay, now on to the heart of Central Illinois Small. Okay. Gibson City wins 42 to 20. Hillcrest all over Westmont. Warrensburg Latham beats Fisher. School over Eureka. 13, 18. Leroy over Hayworth, 42 to 7. Okay. So we're through that conference. About 40% done with score input right now. Still missing, let's see, we got 4 on here. Hamilton County, Edwards County, Breeze Central, Freeburg, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson. Moving on to the Illini Prairie. St. Joe Ogden over IVC. Monticello over Bloomington Central Catholic. 2 losses in a row for the Saints. Prairie Central over Rantoul. Paxton over Pontiac. Okay, and then that wild one, Tolono loses 53 to 52 to Belleville Alltough. On to the Illinois Central 8. Were you at the Herscher game tonight, Paul? Mantino 4-0, I believe, for the first time since 2015. 42 to 8 over Streeter tonight. Wilmington 49-13 over Peatone. Ah, okay. See the final on the Herscher game, Paul? They won 8-7. Okay, now I'm working on the independents. This will take a minute. One, 53-52. Breeze Mater Dei. 44-6 win over Madison. St. Teresa. Okay, so looks like I'm missing Elmwood, Brimfield, and St. Teresa. Never mind, I just found it. Elmwood was a 60-29 win. That's a nice win for nice win for Mount Vernon, beating Collinsville tonight. So then we're through the Independence and into the Interstate 8. Yeah, there were a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of lopsided games. You're absolutely right. I'm definitely noticing that as I put these in. Might run a point scored in this week query tomorrow just to see. Takes a little coding, but I can figure it out pretty quickly. Because it really feels like we scored a whole bunch of points this week. Okay, on to the Kishwaukee now. Once again, missing 4 scores. Hamilton County, Edwards County, Breeze Central, Freeburg, Elk Grove, Niles North, and Hyde Park, Noble Johnson. Okay. Oh, I just got a notification on my phone. Illinois won tonight. Nice. ILL. Richmond Burton won that game 49-7 over Harvard tonight. Ringo 31-10 over Woodstock. Woodstock North. More points for Woodstock North. 41-9. Thank you, Weather. So now we're down to 3. We go drop that Breeze Central score in there where it belongs. 2-0. 0-14. Okay. Okay, now I'm on the Lincoln Prairie. Yeah, I misspoke. That was 41-17. You're right. Okay. Arthur over Sangamon Valley. Sullivan over Argenta. Cumberland game got moved to Saturday. That much I know. Okay, now I'm looking for Arcola and Tri-County. I got a fourth quarter score on it, but not a final. Thanks, Weather. Almost 55-7. All right. So a little over halfway done now. Cumberland Villa Grove got moved to tomorrow. I do know that. My missing scoreboard: Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, and Noble Johnson. 3 games total. Illini West over South Fulton, 44-20. It's a crossover. Farmington 54-6. Over Bear Valley. Okay, Knoxville 49-18 over Lewistown. Macomb 48-22 over Hancock. Farmington 48-6 over Bureau Valley. Okay, so now the large side is done. Over to the small side. Rushville over Abingdon, 40-32. Okay, looks like we're looking for Stark County and Havana. So I'm going to add that one to the list. Wethersfield 42-8 over United. Yes, Alex, that was. He was the side judge on the normal community sideline. Stark County 33-13. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now we're into the little Illini. Oh, yes, he was, Alex. Okay, so Mount Carmel over Newton. and Marshall play on Saturday. Okay, looking like I'm a little short here in the Little Illini Conference. But we'll see. I'm going to check a couple other places first. Yep, I'm missing 2 games in the Little Illini Conference. Casey, Westfield, and Robinson. And Paris and Lawrenceville. Yeah, how about that touchdown pass he threw to make it 19-0? My goodness, on the run and just threw a dart to that kid in double coverage. That was really impressive. I was standing right in front of that pass, and I almost couldn't believe it got in there. Paris, 27-19. Thank you, sir. Yeah, no kidding. What a throw. Hard to believe he's a sophomore. Got 2 more years of a good one there. Okay. So on to the Middle Illini. Look at that. East Peoria, 4-0. 33-30 over Canton. Break them up. Dunlap easily over Limestone, 49-0. Okay. Metamora, 40-37 over Morton. Pekin loses to Washington, 19-9. Okay. Mid-Suburban East. Okay. (30-24) win for Hersey. Buffalo Grove 1, Highland Park. Okay. Okay. So, still looking for Elk Grove Niles North out of this bunch. Okay. So, right now I've got Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Casey, Westfield, and Robinson are the missing games. Wheeling with a win tonight. Rolling Meadows with a win tonight. Prospect with a win tonight. So a good night for the Mid-Sub East. Barrington wins over Maine South, 42-35. Conant loses to Plainfield North, 7-30. Palatine, 27-3. Friend wins, 28-20. Schaumburg to 4-0, 21-14. All right, on to the Mississippi Valley. Highland 35-25 winners. Triad 31-7 over Waterloo. Jersey 41-16 over Civic Memorial. Okay. So about 60% done right now. Casey 42-25. Thank you, sir. That's about what I expected. Okay. Now I'm into the North Suburban. Lake Forest, 31-12 over Zion Benton. Waukegan, 43-6. Losers to Warren. Zurich loses 29-7 to Libertyville. Stevenson, 36-0 over Mundelein. Okay, on to the Northern Illinois. Harlan, 44-38 over Rockford Jefferson. Nothing. Over Guilford. Belvedere North, 34-20 over Rockford Boylan. Okay, so right now I'm looking for Belvedere and Rockford East out of the Northern Illinois 10. Never mind, I just found it. Rockford East 29-18. Okay, so now we're in the Northern Lake County. Antioch, 41-6 over Lakes. Grant and Grays Lake North. Grays Lake Central, 19-14 over North Chicago. And Wakanda beats Round Lake 56-0. Okay. So right now, Looks like I'm missing one out of the Northern Lake County. Nope, I'm not. Okay. So Grays Lake North wins, 58-57 over Grant. So another wild score tonight. Okay, Northwest Upstate Illini is next. Winslow wins 50-0 over Dakota. Durand wins 30-0 over Morrison. Forreston wins 36-16 over Eastland. Eastland wins, my bad. And Stockton gets Fulton tonight. That's a little surprising. Okay. So, I am missing Galena and Fenimore, Wisconsin. Okay. So just to recap, missing Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Galena, and Fenimore, Wisconsin. As we move on to the Sangamo. Pleasant Plains beats Auburn 28-25. $67-30 for Maroa Forsyth tonight over Porta. Williamsville wins 21-12 over Pittsfield. And Olympia beats Athens 38-35. Okay. On to the Southern Illinois River, Mississippi Division. About 70 more games I need to dig out here. Thank you, Weather. Okay. 70 more games on the board, looks like. Nashville beats Anna 48-6. Duke Coin over Benton 21-10. Oh, really? Okay, that's a surpriser. Okay, now checking one other place before I add a game to the list. I found it, so I don't have to. 61, 34. All right, on to the Southern Illinois River, Ohio Division. Okay. Okay, looking for Carterville 49-20 over Heron. Okay, so I don't need anybody out of that league. South Central Conference. Whoa, that can't be right. Can anybody find me a Greenville Litchfield score? Because what I'm looking at, I don't believe. Staunton. And Daly over Southwestern. Pena over North Mac. Yeah, that's the score I found, Weather. But the IHSA currently has it reversed. I didn't think that was right. Centralia wins 49-6. Marion plays tomorrow. Cahokia 44-21 over Carbondale. And Mount Vernon beats Collinsville. So on to the South Suburban Blue. Got a couple of those in already, so it shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Oak Forest 46-0 over Bremen. Okay, looking for Evergreen Park and TF North. So the list right now is Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Evergreen Park, TF North. Richards wins 68-12. Shepherd beats Argo 25-10. Okay. Now we're in the Southland Conference. Crete Moni 63-6 over Thornwood. Kankakee 26-13 win. All right, so getting down to the nitty-gritty here. All right, I also need Rich Township and Thornton. So starting to pile up a little bit here. Got what looks like to be 5 games that I'm missing. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the Southwest Valley Blue. Homewood Flossmoor 43-16 over Newport. Lincoln Way East 49-17 over Newport North. Okay. So now, moving down here into the other South Valley divisions, but getting pretty close. Lincoln Way Central beat DeKalb tonight, 39-6. Naperville Central beat Stagg 56-7. Tail lost to Andrew. I don't remember the score. 746. Andrew wins 46-7. Okay, on to the Southwest. The Southwestern. Belleville West wins 44-22. Southwestern Edwardsville beats O'Fallon 46-10. All right. Now we're moving to the Southwest Prairie. Okay. Punch the scores in here because I know who won each one of them. Bolingbrook wins 28-0 over Plainfield East. They're now 2-2. Oswego wins 70-7 over Joliet Central. Has anybody seen a Minooka Romeoville final? Okay. Plainfield South, Oswego East, 7-13, 14-7. Plainfield North, 28, Joliet West, 3. Joliet West, 3-28. Yorkville. This is 840. 48. Okay. So now I'm into the Three Rivers. 56-0. Thank you, Weather. Okay, the missing scores right now: Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Evergreen Park, TF North, Rich Township, and Thornton. Let's see. Okay, so moving on down. Okay, so 16. All right, so I'm going to go back up here and work over the Three Rivers. About 35 more games that I need to input. Got 3 of them right here. 9-10 Monmouth over Mendota. Kewanee loses 15-44 to Princeton. And Sherrard beats Hall 20-14. All right. So now we move to the other side of the Three Rivers. And that's going to be Mercer County with a 36-7 win over Riverdale. And then we've got Newman winning 54-21. Rockridge beats Erie 41-0. Okay. On to the Upstate 8. Getting real close. Lombard East, a big winner over Elmwood Park. Fenton loses 49-6 to Lombard South. Ridgewood loses 35-43 to West Chicago. And Riverside Brookfield beats Elgin 30-14 in the crossover game. Okay. So now we're going to the other side of the Upstate 8. Bartlett over Streamwood 27-6. West Aurora goes to 4-0, 50-7 over South Elgin. And Larkin beats East Aurora. Okay. It's Vermilion Valley time. Men's 48-14 over Hoopston. Okay, looks like we got a couple issues here in the Vermilion Valley to try to rectify. Salt Fork and Watseka And Westville and Georgetown Ridge Farm. Okay. Thank you for the TF North score. I'm going to go down to the western suburb. Addison Trail with a 28-21 win over Hinsdale South. Morton played Hinsdale Central in a crossover. That was 56-0 in favor of Hinsdale South. Okay. And we've got Downers Grove South and Willowbrook. 18-16, Downers Grove South. Downers Grove North, 54-0 over Proviso. And York, 42-21 over Oak Park River Forest. Okay. So, thank you for the Salt Fork score, guys. So, as it stands, missing the following scores: Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Rich Township and Thornton, Westville, and Georgetown Ridge Farm. As I move to the Western Illinois Valley and the final conference of the night. So, I got to be honest, this might be a record for speed. Camp Point Central over Unity. All right, looks like I'm looking for Triopia in Brown County as well. Okay. And then the final conference of the night, the Western Illinois Valley South. $56-14 for Greenfield. Whitehall North Green, 14-56. Calhoun wins 46-6. Carrollton 34-12. All right. So I have all the scores that I've been able to find on First Pass. Once again, the repeated scores that I'm looking for: Hamilton County, Edwards County, Elk Grove, Niles North, Hyde Park, Noble Johnson, Rich Township and Thornton, Westville, Georgetown Ridge Farm, Triopia, and Brown County. I'll do a few breakouts here, just to see what's going on. Okay, so we've got 70 teams that have reached 4-0 tonight. There are another, let's see how many, quite a few actually. Well, that's not right. That's not reading correctly. They're 3-1. Okay. All right, so then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And nope, they're 4-0. So 71 after you move TF North up there. 72 after you move Salt Fork up there. So the corrected number is now 72. Okay, 72 teams are 4-0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 more can join them tomorrow. So 72 with a maximum of 78. So that's a pretty precipitous fall. It looks like we lost somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 undefeated teams. Might be a little less depending on who wins tomorrow. But that's a pretty big drop-off. We only had 12 that were guaranteed to lose because they were playing other undefeated teams. So based on that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for tonight and go see if I can hunt down those last 6 scores that I'm missing. I'll post them on Twitter in case anybody is going to go hunting along with me. By the way, I like to do this every week just to check in. Strength of schedule leader right now is Conant, followed by Carmel, Morris, Wheaton, Warrenville South, St. Charles East, Heron, Alton, and Elmwood Park are all tied at 3rd place. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.